Conan, thanks for giving us a few moments. You're Chief Commercial Officer of BioLiberty.
Yeah.
What do BioLiberty do?
So BioLiberty make robotics for stroke rehabilitation, but our type of robotics are very different to the traditional robotic systems that exist in the market today. We are using what's called soft robotics.
Mm-hmm.
Soft robotics are soft, they're squidgy, they're lightweight, they're a lot more fit for purpose on the human body in comparison to traditional exoskeleton systems that exist today.
Look, I have to admit to being a complete idiot when it comes to this kind of area. I know nothing about stroke rehabilitation, but how does the robotics actually work?
Yeah, so the robotics help to open up the hand. So when someone has a stroke, they really struggle to actually open their hand, and so we call that extension mobilization. And usually to get somebody to open their hand, a physical therapist or occupational therapist will, work with their hand, relax with their hand, and do all these different types of exercises to mobilize that movement. But our robotics help a person to do that without an OT or PT present. So we can help them do more rehab and more intense rehab whilst the PT and OT is seeing all these different types of people on the ward.
Now, look, what you're saying there lends itself to an obvious question. People are worried that automation might lead to a reduction in the amount of jobs available for people. What would you say to that? How do you think robotics can actually go hand in hand with workers, and how do you think that jobs might evolve in the future?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and it's one that we're faced with quite often, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And because people are really scared about robotics and AI replacing their jobs, especially within the healthcare industry. But I think people's perception of robotics are a lot more scarier and they're a lot more intimidating than what we actually know what robotics are capable of. Robotics in our field are never going to be capable of replacing the occupational therapist, the physiotherapist, the doctor. We are so far away from that. I can't even see that in these next 50 years. So the robots that we're developing are simply to be used as an extra tool to engage in more types of rehabilitation. That rehabilitation may not be of the same quality that you would get directly from a therapist, but it's still something. It's still something to engage in whilst the physiotherapist or occupational therapist is not present. And there's lots of evidence to say engaging in that types of rehabilitation can lead to better patient outcomes.
Now, you moved in here beginning of 2022.
Yes.
The National Robotarium, I think, officially opened in the autumn of 2022.
Yeah.
What do you think a centre like this provides for a business to enable it to flourish?
It's been absolutely huge. This place, just walk through the doors and you see what you're greeted with. A space of really like-minded people, robotic dogs and all sorts just wandering around at any stage throughout the day. But this is like a real hub for us. It's a hub where we can engage with people within the industry, not even just within the robotics healthcare industry. Robotics span across loads of different types of industries that the Robotarium engage with here. So there's never a challenge that hasn't probably already been encountered by the people within this space. So the people's one thing, but then the equipment, the facilities, we have lab space here. We develop all of our soft robots from the Robotarium. And yes, so the tech and equipment facilities have just been absolutely instrumental in helping us progress our product development to where it is now today.
You talked there about kind of interfacing with industry, right? At the minute, the EU are trying to write AI legislation.
Yeah.
If you look at the States, there seems to be a higher appreciation at the minute, or maybe appreciation is the wrong word, but there seems to be an ease to work with AI in a slightly more progressed sense anyway in the US. Then you think about China, and you've got a huge internal market, and that makes it a very competitive environment. Do you think that you've got the right competitive environment here in Europe and possibly here in the UK that helps you thrive as a business?
The market here is progressing, and it's progressing fast, but it's still some way to go to compete with the likes of the US and Asian markets like China. For example, ourselves, we have to go to market firstly in the US before we enter the UK and EU markets, and that's purely from a regulatory perspective. there's the regulatory challenges or obstacles for us as a business are a little less in the US than they are in the UK. So there is some, and that leads to a lot of innovation spawned in the UK and then, migrating over to the States.
Right.
And we don't want to see that happening. We want to see technology and innovation being spawned here and being, carried right through into our healthcare systems and our local markets. That's not happening right now. The US and Asian markets are being used as a stepping stone to enter the UK and the EU. So, how can we keep our innovation here and stop it from going directly to the US? I don't know if I have the answer quite right now, but it's some way to go.
Look, I know you've said that you don't necessarily have the answers here, but as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, what would you like to see regulators do or the environment change in some way to try and make sure that you can thrive as a business?
I think regulations are great, and with regulation comes a lot of evidence that's required for us as a business to enter these markets, and that's great. That keeps everybody really safe. But what doesn't exist right now, even whenever that evidence is present, is the actual funding for robotic and new systems like ours to be piloted within these healthcare systems. So funding is a huge part of that, and we need there to be more to get our systems like ours piloted within the NHS.
Thank you very much for your time.